Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Walker. All right, let's bring it to you.
Let's all rise for the jury, please. Please be seated.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as the Exhibit 176. This is one apparently you recognize that?
I do.
What is that an image of?
It is Cooper in the front-facing car seat by mid-May.
Mid-May 2014?
Yes.
Not the key fit, but the new set.
Correct.
You think that's talking about a month before Cooper's death?
I do.
I'm going to move 176.
No objection.
Admitted.
Leanna, you previously identified that flash drive that we looked at that had some video clips on it. I now like to publish those video clips. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Mr. Lumpkin to play one, and I'm going to just let you explain what it is we're looking at, okay? Judge, if I can have permission to go ahead and publish the video clips on 176.
No objection.
That's fine.
I'm 175. I'm sorry, 175. Okay. Mr. Lumpkin, if you don't mind, if you would just play those one after the other for me, please. Okay. Leanna, what have we just seen there in that first clip?
That was the trip that we took to Fort Walton Beach for Martin Luther King.
Okay. So that was just a couple of weeks before Cooper's death. And we don't see the face, but is that Ross's blue bathing suit?
It is.
Okay. Thank you. Next one. Okay. It says home Ross and Coop playing. What are we looking at there again?
That's them in our bed, and they would that's kind of a little game that they would play, and I wanted to get it on video. I was taping video.
little more. Little more. Little more. Little more. Little more. Here you go.
Okay.
It's just, I looked like a video that Ross had taken of feeding him a banana.
So we hear some laughing and we hear a voice. Is that Ross's voice that we hear?
I think so, yes.
All right. All right, so that says home Ross feeding ice cream. Do you remember what was going on there?
Yeah, he would, that was one of the first times he had had ice cream like that. So I think I'm videoing it.
Okay. And just before you move on, Ms. Lumpkin, if you'll hold on. We see what appears to be a reflection up there.
It is, there was a mirror behind our kitchen table.
Okay. Is that Ross?
It is Ross.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Lumpkin.
Put them on. Come here. Come here.
Okay, that says, before you move on, Brian, that said home with Ross Cooper. Do you remember what that was that we were seeing?
Yeah, I remember it. I took the video.
Okay. You remember?
It sounds like there's somebody in the kitchen, so I might have been in the kitchen. My mom might have taken that video, but
Okay.
he kept saying on, and he wanted Ross to put the glasses on.
So the title of that had a date of 5/29/14. Do you recall if that's on or about or accurate date of that recording?
It would have been the timestamp of that video, whatever day it was.
All right. All right, good. Thank you. Go ahead, please. Just kidding.
You try.
Okay. Home Ross teaching Coop to whistle, and is that
Yes.
that was at y'all's house?
It was.
Okay. And can you go back? I think we skipped.
Say ba. Say nana. Say banana. Come. Say ba. Say nana. Say banana. No, banana. All right, one more time. Cooper. Say ba. Say nana. Say banana. Say banana. You want it?
All right. You told us earlier that when you were describing your little boy that he loved bananas.
He did.
Okay. And again, that's Ross that we hear trying to get him to say the word banana.
Yes.
Okay.
He called them nanas or nannies, and we never could get him to put the two together, and he was trying really hard to get him to put the two together.
Yay!
Okay. Ross kind of helping him there, hold on and swing like a monkey on the table.
Yeah, he had done it by himself, and we saw him do that, and so I pulled my phone out, and we just kind of helped him do it again because we thought it was so cute.
Oh no! I know.
All right. So is that at home in y'all's bed?
It is.
Okay. They're just laying there together trying to say, I know, or something like that.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Oh, very good.
And then Cooper looks a little younger there. Was that taken in Cooper's room?
It was. He was probably somewhere around 6, 7 months old.
All right. And we see you sort of popping up there. Was that video taken by Ross?
It was.
All right, so we talked a little bit about parks while you've been testifying. Do you recognize the video of where this particular park was?
That was a park that we went to when we visited my friend Angie in Jackson, Mississippi. And I think it was March of 2014.
Okay. All right, and you told us a little bit, obviously we've talked about parks, but you told us a little bit about sliding, going down slides and whatnot. And is that Ross that we see sort of helping him down the slide?
It was.
Okay.
Yes. And that's a park in the Atlanta area.
Okay, and hold that one there if you would. Right. Ross looks a little big for that slide, but you told us that that Ross would like to do those things. He wanted to be the one to push and even go down the slides. Okay. Is what we're seeing here typical of kind of how Ross played with Cooper whenever y'all would go to the park?
Yes, he was very hands-on. He was involved in all aspects.
Okay.
Cooper. You still ahead of me?
It's the same thing for atoms. Inside the nucleus of an atom,
Cooper.
there are many electrons and neutrons.
Can you say hey, Mimi?
It's the exact same
Ooh.
thing, except for the opposite.
Uh-oh.
Took all the grains of sand in the world and multiplied it by 10. Like there's like 100 times more
Cooper.
neutrons in an atom
Come here. Hey,
in one atom.
Cooper. Come here, baby. Cooper. Cooper. Come here. Where are you going?
Okay, if you'll leave that there, Ryan. So, do you know what beach this is and when this was taken?
That was Fort Walton Beach, Memorial Day weekend, 2014.
Okay, so this is the trip just a couple of weeks before Cooper's death. So we hear a man speaking in the background about grains of sand and neutrons and whatnot. Was that Ross?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea what he was talking about?
I mean, just Ross. I mean, talking about something he probably looked up online 2 minutes before I pressed record. Something about some neutrons and some atoms.
Okay. Is that the kind of random ridiculousness that he would talk about all the time?
Yes.
All right, go ahead. Play that again, please, before you do. It says Cooper fall asleep eating. Do you remember this? Okay. This video is 22 seconds. I want you to take a look at this again. Go ahead. All right, stop it and hold it there. Is this at your home?
It is.
You see in this plate crumbs all over the top of the little table. See, we don't see any more food on the plate, at least on that part of the plate.
Right.
What is he eating there?
That looks like one of his last bites of a grocery sandwich.
Okay. To the best of your recollection, when y'all shot this, and by the way, you see up there, we'd see the reflection in the
It's
mirror.
me.
Is that you?
It is.
You're taking this. Okay. And to the best of your recollection, was this taken after Cooper had finished his meal or almost finished it and had food in his tummy?
It was.
Okay. We've talked about this a little bit earlier in your testimony. Is this indicative of the way that he fell asleep after he got a little food in his tummy?
Yes. If he was going to go to sleep, if he was ready to go to sleep, he was going to go.
Go ahead.
Fill it out next week.
Oh, Eddie.
Give me those things, man. They're in the top of the in front of the toolbox.
What?
The orange things from the cliffy things. Sitting on top of them.
Okay. This says December 25, 2013. Do you know where this was?
Yes, that was in our home in Marietta.
Okay. And is that Ross there, the
It is.
sweatpants?
It is.
Okay. And is this, in fact, Christmas morning, to the best of your
Yes.
knowledge? Okay. All right. Thank you. is that's essentially that same morning, right after y'all got it unwrapped to play with it?
It is.
Right. Some sort of little drum, some musical little drum set or something? Okay. All right, pause that, please. All right, so we hear some laughing. Is that you and Ross?
It is.
Okay.
You can kind of see us in the reflection, both of us at one time. Looks like I'm recording it, but he did that weird thing where it looks like he's gagging himself, and I noticed it and turned on the video, and to see if he would do it again. He did, especially when you can kind of see in the video. He makes eye contact with Ross right after he does it, and you can tell Cooper realized, hey, I did something that got attention.
So he did it again.
So he did it again.
You do it. Go.
All right. Well, I guess that's probably self-explanatory. We've heard a little bit about Ross playing guitars in the church band or whatnot. And did you record that? Do you remember what that was all about?
I'm pretty sure I recorded it. I can't say for sure.
Did Ross play his guitar around the house? Okay. And when he played for Cooper?
Can
Did Cooper like it? Okay. Good.
Cooper.
Stand up. Stand up.
Cooper. Cooper. You're sitting down.
All right, so if you'll leave that for a second. Do you know where this is?
That is on the grounds of the condo that we lived in. They had a little area that had some benches. And that was Easter 2014. And the snapping in the background is Ross taking pictures with our digital camera. And my mom's actually videoing.
Okay. All right, good. All right. We've got a gift being opened, and this says March 31. Do you have any idea what that was all
I think
about?
that was Easter the previous year, Easter 2013.
again, did Ross love this little boy?
Yes, I did. Very much.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Harris, on June 18th, 2014, after you left the house at 7:15 a.m. that morning, you never saw the defendant again until that night, correct?
That's correct.
And that was after he was told he was being arrested and after he'd sat for a while back in that cell that he described, correct?
When I saw him?
Yeah, it was after he'd been told he was going to be arrested and after he'd been sitting in that room thinking about having been arrested and things like that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And after 7:15 that morning, you weren't at home with the defendant and Cooper, correct?
No, I left to go to work.
And other than text later that morning and some conversation in the afternoon, you don't know what the defendant was doing that day, do you?
All I know is that he was at work.
Okay. You don't know what actually happened in the car at the Chick-fil-A or anything like that, other than what you may have heard from other people, correct?
That's correct.
You don't know what he had said to other people online that day or anything like that, right? And other than what may have been told to you by other people, you don't know what he was doing, he being the defendant, in that 0.6 miles from Chick-fil-A to the treehouse.
No, sir, I wasn't there.
And you have no idea what the defendant was doing in those 30 seconds in that motor vehicle before he got out and shut the door that morning at Treehouse while people were still in there.
No, sir.
You have no idea what was going on when the defendant went back to that car at lunch and threw light bulbs into the car.
No, sir, I was not there.
And again, I know you've talked about, and we've seen the video of when you first saw the defendant again that night at the police station. But you weren't there to witness him at the crime scene, correct, at Acres Mill?
No, I was not.
Okay, you weren't obviously there seeing him in the patrol car or on the ride to the police station either, correct?
That's correct.
And you weren't there seeing him in the interview room before talking to detectives and while talking to detectives, correct?
Correct.
You saw him after he was told he was being arrested and had thought through everything that came with that. Would you agree with that?
I saw him after he was being told he was charged.
But what there's no doubt of, though, is that, well, let me ask you this. We saw those videos right there of Cooper. As he was getting older, he was a very vocal child, was he not?
It depended on the situation.
If he was excited, he would be loud and excited and things like that, right?
Of course.
Certain things excited him. Like he got excited to go to school sometimes, correct?
He did enjoy going to school.
Okay. And he said he would go to sleep, as you see him in the high chair when he's ready to go to sleep and things like that. And obviously eating that grilled cheese, that wasn't breakfast or anything like that, was it?
It was more than likely lunch.
Okay. So, and usually would he take a nap after lunch?
They did take naps after lunch.
Okay. So he'd be preparing to go to sleep at that point. But when he's going to school, he's excited. And we do know, there's no doubt the defendant told you that Cooper was wide awake when they left Chick-fil-A, correct?
I don't remember what he told me.
Do you remember him telling you that he strapped Cooper in?
I do remember that.
Okay, do you remember him saying that he would give him a kiss and Cooper gave him a kiss back?
I do remember that.
Okay, and do you remember him telling you that Cooper was excited to go to school? Because he said, school.
I would have to look at the transcript to know for sure. I just don't remember that.
Okay.
Specifically, I'm sorry.
That's okay, but if it was in that video, obviously that happened. If he told you the night of that Cooper, right before he left Chick-fil-A, had said to him, school, and was excited to go to school, you're not going to argue that that didn't happen if it's on the video, right?
No, I wouldn't argue that. I mean, if Ross said to him the word, I mean, you've seen in several of the videos, he will mimic what you're doing.
Right.
So it's possible that if Ross said that to him, he would have said it back to him.
And there's no doubt that the defendant could see Cooper from the driver's seat of that Tucson, correct?
I don't know what Ross can see.
Well, we know that he told you he's driving down the road to Acres Mill, and he turns his head to change lanes, and he sees Cooper, correct?
When he turned around, he said.
Yes, when he turned to the side, to his right, correct?
When he turned to change lanes, so he would have been behind him.
Correct. And so he turned right, child's right there, you can see him if you're looking back right there, correct?
When he changed lanes, the way that I see it in my head is he's looking back behind him to check his blind spot.
Okay.
In that situation, obviously, yes, he did see him.
And that's not even approaching from the front or getting into a car, right? That's actually sitting and turning your head, not facing straight on, correct?
I'm not really. Can you say that again?
Yeah.
Or rephrase it?
And turning your head like this to change lanes, that's a lot different than actually facing straight on and looking in the car, sitting there, reaching over to grab your bag while the child's still sitting there. That's a lot different. You're actually turning around. It's a lot different than if you're looking and facing that way. You would agree with that?
I would agree that he could see more turning his head to look backwards.
Than looking straight at the car seat?
I don't know if he was looking straight at. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure how I'm supposed to know that he's looking right at the car seat. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Well, let's talk about this. You've been married to were married to the defendant for a long time, right? Several
8
years.
years.
Yeah. And y'all were together longer than that, correct?
We were together 2 years before we were married.
And you filed for divorce right before in March of this year, correct?
It was February. of this year.
February. Okay. So almost 2 years after Cooper's death, correct? Year and a half, almost 2 years.
Close to the 2-year mark. 4 months away.
So you probably knew Ross better than anybody in the world. You would agree with that?
I knew him very well.
Did you know anybody that knew him better?
I don't know if I would say knew him better. There were people who certainly have known him longer than me.
Right. But you lived with him every day. When you were married, you saw him more often, talked to him more often, dealt with him and shared things more often than any other person in the world.
That's correct.
Okay. But he was carrying on a double life up until and on the day of Cooper's death, and you didn't know the extent of that, did you?
I did not.
You'd agree there's a whole part of his life that you had no clue about.
I would agree that I did not know the depth.
Okay. And the depth, that side was much darker than anything you could have ever imagined, correct?
I didn't think that he would cheat on me.
Well, my question was, what he was actually doing and the life he was leading was much darker and much different than you ever could have imagined, correct?
Hasn't answered.
I don't believe she answered it, Judge.
Oh. Could you ask again? Sorry.
Yes. That side, you never could have imagined how different and how much darker it was than what you had seen.
I didn't know. I absolutely did not know.
And just from knowing him, you would have had you never would have thought that possible, would you?
I knew that we had problems in our relationship that are linked to that. But I didn't know.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't know what he was doing. I mean,
Right.
I don't know.
Okay. And you saw the videos, and I mean, generally, as far as to you at home and everything, he was very loving to you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. He was very good to you?
No, I wouldn't say that he was very good to me. He cheated on me.
Well, as far as what you knew at the time, was he very good to you?
Yes.
And what we saw pictured in those videos and what you saw at home then was not reflected in what you learned about his other life. Would you agree with that? Those are two different worlds, what we saw there and then what he was carrying on.
I believe that they're two separate issues.
Well, that's not my question, ma'am. My question is, you would say that the life he found out he was living, I don't even know what you know exactly, but the life he was living on the side was in stark contrast to what we've seen in the videos and what you saw at home. Would you agree with that?
I mean, he wasn't a different person at home. I guess I'm not sure how to answer your question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
He was, I mean, the way that he acted with me at home was not any different than the way that he acted other places.
Okay. How about when he would go see prostitutes?
I didn't know about that.
And that's what I'm saying is, you know what he actually was doing at this point. You've been told to some degree he was seeing prostitutes, he was messaging underage women and things like that. You know that now.
Right.
That, what you've heard of and what you've learned now, that is completely opposite than the defendant that you knew. Would you agree with that?
I would agree that the things that we were struggling with in our marriage were directly related to those things. We had problems related to our sexual relationship. Those things were affecting that. So I can't sit here and say that I was absolutely shocked to find out that he had gone outside of our marriage. The degree.
Okay. And the degree to which he went, would you not agree that that was a different person than he portrayed to you?
I don't know if I would say it was a different person.
Have you read the text messages that he sent to these other women?
No. I have no reason to have read them.
Okay. So, if he's saying foul things to a 15-year-old girl, you wouldn't think that that was something different than the way he portrayed himself to you?
I think it's horrible.
Okay. And so, would you at least agree that just down that minor point, would you agree with me that that's different than the way he portrayed himself to you or the way he acted at home?
I would agree that it's different, but not that it's like a whole other person. I don't agree with that.
So there's some element that doesn't surprise you about the way he was, that he would have been messaging a 15-year-old girl about making him a dirty old man?
No, I'm telling you that's horrible. I didn't know about that.
Right. We'll move on for now. We'll come back to that, okay? Let's just talk about the day in question on the 18th of June. That morning you left around 7:15, I believe, correct? Okay, and you left and you were working in, was it Conyers or Covington? I get those mixed up sometimes. Conyers? Okay. And it was about a 50-minute drive?
Approximately, yes.
Okay. And for the people who don't know where Conyers is versus Marietta, that's clear on the other side of the perimeter, right? The other side of the world, basically, in Atlanta.
It is.
Okay. And you were working as a dietitian, is that correct?
I was.
Okay. And so that morning, you were not home after 7:50, right?
Correct.
Okay. And Cooper woke up that morning and then got into bed and went back to sleep, correct?
He
With
no,
the
he was in
defendant?
the bed with Ross when I left. They were both awake.
Okay. Now, I know this has been some time since the act, since June 18th, 2014. Would your memory have been better back then or today as to who was where and things like that?
It's better back then.
Okay. And if you left and the defendant had said, you know, we got him into bed and he went back to sleep there and y'all let him sleep in, would you have any reason to doubt that?
I don't think that's what he told me.
Do you know what he told the police?
I don't.
Okay. All right. And did he tell you at that time when you left that he was going to hang out and go in late for a daddy-son breakfast and things like that?
He didn't tell me about that.
Okay. So you left everything seem normal, right? Okay. I think you described it to the police. It was a normal day, nothing going on out of the ordinary, correct?
Are you asking me if that's how he described it?
Now, is that how you described it to the police as well? It was a normal,
Right.
ordinary day?
It was a normal day.
Okay. And he didn't appear stressed out about anything or anything like that, correct?
Ross?
Correct, yeah.
No, he didn't.
Did not appear stressed. No different than any other day.
Correct.
He didn't appear to be in a hurry that morning. Would you agree with that?
I wasn't there when he left, so I'm honestly, I'm not sure.
If you left at 7:15 and he didn't get to work until 9:25, you would agree he's not really in a hurry. He wasn't trying to get out the door right then, was he?
He had a flexible schedule.
Okay. You would agree that the drive from your home to Little Apron, that is a much longer drive, distance, time, than just the Chick-fil-A to Little Apron or Treehouse. You would agree with that, right?
Right, yes, I would.
And again, also, that would be much, I mean, Cooper fell asleep several times in the car coming from home to go to Little Apron. You would agree with that? He'd fall asleep in the mornings on the way to daycare.
From home to daycare.
Yes.
I wasn't the one dropping him off most mornings, but I know when I would pick him up and we would drive from daycare to home, he would fall asleep.
And again, that drives a lot longer than the Chick-fil-A to that U-turn you have to make to turn
Yes.
around and go back, right?
It is longer.
And that U-turn is just a matter of seconds. Would you agree with that? 30, 40 seconds.
I would say it would depend on the traffic for the day.
And on that day, the defendant had decided to go see a movie with his friends the night before, correct?
It wasn't, I don't think it was concrete until the next day.
Okay. Have you had a chance, I know you reviewed several things before coming in here. Did you have a chance to review Google chats between the defendant and his buddies, Alex and Winston and things like that? Okay. You wouldn't have any reason to doubt the veracity of that or anything if those chats reflected they had decided the night before to go to a movie right after work.
I just wouldn't have been part of that conversation.
Okay. Did the defendant did he ever ask you to go to the movie or anything like that?
No, he was going to go with his friends.
Okay.
I think that what I'm saying is not concrete. I think they knew they were going to go to the movies. I just don't think they had decided at that morning until later what time they were going to go.
And that morning they decided well, the chats will show what they show. But as far as the time, that morning they decided they were going to the 5 o'clock and they were going to be back at 7, correct?
That was what the text from Ross, and he said that he should be home by 7.
Okay. And so, based on that, you would have gotten him to take him home that evening, correct?
I would have picked him up, yes.
Okay. And Ross, the defendant's text to you at 3:16, when are you going to get my buddy? It's obvious he thought you were picking Cooper up, correct?
Yes. And then we had a telephone discussion about that because I wasn't sure if he was going if he was planning on going home first.
Mhm.
If he was planning on going home first, I was going to get him to pick up Cooper, and we would just meet at home, and then he could go to the movie. But he wasn't planning on going home. He was planning on going straight to the movies.
Okay. And this movie started at 5, correct?
Yes.
And you talked to him right around 4 o'clock, right?
I sent him the text, he said, are you not going home first?
Mhm.
Please call me, something along the lines. It was around 3:50.
And then y'all talked at about 4:04 p.m., correct?
It was shortly after I sent that text.
Right. And he told you, I'm not going to go home, I'm going straight to the theater.
I'm assuming that's the conversation. I really don't remember the conversation as far as, like, I can't tell you exactly what was said.
Okay.
But I know the gist of the conversation. Basically, I'm not going home first. I'll go straight to the movie.
And this, I know you testified on direct that that you guys didn't do a lot outside of hanging out with Cooper and doing stuff together and things like that. You remember that?
That we did.
That you did not do a lot outside. Most of y'all's time was spent with Cooper and hanging out as a family.
We did a lot of things as a family. We did take a trip alone.
Well, I mean, just generally on a day-to-day basis, I think on direct you were saying, it wasn't like y'all were going out a lot and things like that.
We weren't.
Let me ask you
We
this.
did. We
Okay, go
went
ahead.
out to dinner. We would go out to dinner and Cooper would go with us.
Yeah.
We weren't limited in any way as far as that's concerned.
Right.
Now, you want to talk about going to a movie, that's a completely different thing because you're talking about taking a toddler into a movie.
Absolutely.
It's not.
But as far as, I think on direct, what you were testifying to is the fact that it wasn't like he would go out all the time and leave you with Cooper, and you wouldn't go out all the time and leave him with Cooper. There was nothing like
Right.
that.
We did things together.
Okay. Now, you would agree that you did have an argument with him about him going out too much and things like that and leaving you and Cooper.
I wouldn't necessarily say it was like an argument, maybe just a disagreement.
Okay.
Is there
Yes.
particular?
There is. I'm going to show you what I've marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 934. Okay, now, Mrs. Harris, or Mrs. Taylor now, you stated that you looked over the text messages between you and the defendant, and your text messages with several people before you came in today, correct?
I was able to see up until February
Okay, and how were you able to see that?
on my phone.
Okay. A lot of these texts that you just talked about, though, were in May and things like that. How were you able to review those?
No, I was able to see through, like, it started in February of 2014.
All right.
It went all the way until June the 18th.
So you reviewed text messages that would have been in May of 2014 as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 934 and ask you if you recognize this. Just looking, I'll let you go ahead and read it. Just kind of starting around here. Or just look at the whole thing and see if you recognize it. You having reviewed that.
This, it's not an argument. I can see why it would be seen as that.
We'll get to it. Let me ask you, do you recognize that as that text conversation that you had with the defendant regarding his going out?
It is a conversation between me and Ross.
Okay, and does that print out a fair and accurate representation of that conversation?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would tender State's Exhibits, 934 at this time.
I think those are already in. Aren't those, are all the texts already in?
they're in disc form, but I don't know if I don't think the printouts are already.
Okay. I think this may be already in. Yeah, the disc is already in, so whatever objections I guess we would have to the original disc, but since it's already in, I don't have any objection to this, but just the paper exhibit.
Right, the same objections we noted, and then if there are any, it's in there.
And these are from the same, thank you, Judge. Yeah, these are from the same thing that they just entered printouts of as well. So,
Yes, you can use it.
thank you. Okay. On this, Ms. Sarah, just want you to take a look and read along with me if you don't mind, okay? Earlier on the 7th, you stated, you guys doing okay, hello, you're alive, going, it's 8:58 a.m., 9:51 a.m. that morning, correct? We said, yeah, okay, good. And then at noon, the defendant said, I'm going to have a drink or two tonight with the guys to celebrate the start of our company, right? And then you stated, why always Thursday? Why? It was my Gray's night. First, you have her.
Yes, but
Gray's night that's Gray's Anatomy, right?
it is.
And is that something you watch with Joey Nesbitt? Y'all get together and watch Gray's Anatomy?
Yes.
Okay.
But
and-
that's, I know that's in a joking kind of way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. And then he says, no, not too late, but we've been busy and haven't had time. And yes, I'm a gaffer. Then he corrected it to say gaffer, correct? Okay, and that's all around noon on that day, right?
I'm sorry, it's here.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Whatever, and you said, whatever, wasn't your $50 dinner at that Italian place your celebration dinner? And then he responded, kinda, but not really. And you responded, whatever, you're full of crap, don't spend my B-Day money. And then he said, I'm going to spend it all and buy 8 guitars.
Yes, obviously joking.
Right. And then you said, better not. And then you asked, are you getting Cooper?
Yes.
And then he said, yes, I can get him. And then he asked you, when do you get off? Okay. Then you actually, at 1:07 p.m., you responded to him, started with, I didn't mean to be mean.
Because I felt like I had been, maybe I had seemed mean in the previous times.
Okay. And then you went on to say, I just feel like you're always going with them, having dinners, drinks, etc., and I'm never involved or invited, and I'm just home with Cooper. I don't go out for dinner and drinks with any friends. I rarely get to go out to dinner, period, without Cooper. But I don't because my priority is you and Cooper. That's what you said to him, correct? And he said, but I want you to go out with friends. And the same with you, but we haven't seen each other as a group over 2 weeks. They wanted to do it last night, but I told them I wanted to see you because I haven't in a few days. He said, I love you and Cooper. I love spending time with you guys. And then he said, by the way, you responded, LOL. And he said, he farted this morning while I was putting him in the car seat. I almost threw up. I thought he would. Okay. How would you respond? Okay.
I don't know the time frame of when the other started. It's a completely different conversation.
Okay.
He had been starting up his business with his friends, and they were spending time doing that.
Right.
So that's what I was referring to in that period of time.
Okay. Well, you would agree, though, that you voiced concern that you were being not invited to do things and staying with Cooper, and you told him because your priority was Cooper and him, right?
I did say that.
Okay. You know, while we're kind of on that topic, I'm going to turn your attention to May 30th into May 31st of 2014. Do you remember a time or back then the defendant going to help his friends move and things of that nature?
I did.
Okay. And you remember that was a few days before you were going to be leaving on that trip to go to Alabama.
Right.
Okay. And do you remember him staying out later and you wondering where he was and him saying, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm dropping Winston off, I'm going to go get some food or something like that. You saw those.
I think it was meat. Was it meat for dinner that night?
I think so. I think that's what it was. Pretty good memory there. And you obviously by now know what he was doing, right? Okay. let's start with this. Looking at State's Exhibit 639, this has already been admitted, just for the record, Judge.
Yes.
Looking at this, is this a text message again between you, your phone number, and the defendant and his phone number? And this is dated May 31st, 2014.
Right.
And is this the conversation where he talks about looking at, let's start at 1:55 p.m., he says, moving sites. Although small Penske parking in that being Midtown, holy crap. And then he said he's going to be at Alex's school. All right, at 2:33 p.m., you ask, well, when are you coming home? It kind of sucks spending the whole day alone. And then at 2:34 p.m., mid-afternoon, he says, very shortly. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. 2:34, yeah. And then at 2:34, you respond, okay. And then you said, we may go back, I'm thinking we may go back down to the pool. Glorious nap time is over at 2:46 p.m. And then he said, oh, a nap, that'd be nice at 2:48 p.m., correct? All right, and about the same time, 2:48, a little bit later, you said, what will we eat for dinner? We have no meat. And he responds pretty quickly after that. Y'all start talking about, he says, I'll get meat, chicken, then you talk about beef to make spaghetti, I don't know. And then at 3:02 p.m., he says, okay, I'm leaving soon, honey. And then he says, we took the mini truck back. And then you said, well, stop by the pool if you come home soon. Now, at 3:55, almost an hour later, you ask him, are you coming home yet?
Right. And I was getting frustrated at that point, obviously. That's pretty, the relationship with time.
Okay.
It was something that occurred. You know, he would say, I'll be ready in 10 minutes when it really meant 45 minutes. Or, so what I used to always think is, well, Ross says I'll be there very shortly is different
Okay.
than what my definition of be there very shortly would be.
So you thought maybe he was just running behind, losing track of time?
Yes.
Okay. After that, I believe, a little bit later, at 4:02, you texted him, hello. Sorry, that was, I don't know if you really meant it in that voice, but you said hello, correct? Okay. Because he hadn't responded, and then he said, yep, about to leave, going to my car, 4:02. And at 4:34, he says, just dropped Winston off, going to get beef. And you said, okay. And then at 4:36, you say, please tell me you aren't playing tomorrow. That means guitar, because this was a Saturday. The next day you had church. And you asked him, please tell me you're not doing that. But then you explained it later in the text, correct? And you said, I am. You said, okay. I guess you weren't thinking about the fact that we were leaving Wednesday for 4 or 5 days. I've missed you today. And that's 4:38. And then 5:01, he says, or you say, and also, if you would like crescent rolls, Cooper says for weeks. And he says, 5:01, LOL, okay. 5:33, he says, leaving store in a second. 5:33, he asks anything else. You say, nah, about the same time. He says, okay, about the same time. Okay. So during that time, that afternoon, he tells you he's doing all this stuff. He's with Winston and things of that nature. Did you know that was the afternoon he actually called a prostitute and went to have sex with her instead of being at home with you and Cooper?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that then.
Did you know that before you came in here today, that instead of that, that's what had happened?
I knew that he had seen a prostitute. I didn't know exactly.
Okay, you didn't know if it was actually during the time you were basically asking him to come back and spend time with you two because you were leaving town.
Right, I didn't know.
Okay. To a degree, he was choosing that life over spending time with you and Cooper on that day.
That day.
Okay. And that's about a little over 2 weeks from Cooper's death. Would you agree with that?
It was.
Okay. Now, I talked a little bit about the defendant's, his work schedule is pretty flexible, right? He could kind of come and go as he pleased, things of that nature.
It appeared flexible to me.
Okay. Obviously, you didn't work there. You didn't know exactly how it went on day to day. But from what you could gather from talking to your husband and his comings and goings, he had a very flexible schedule as far as when he left for the day when he came home and things of that nature.
Correct.
Now, Chick-fil-A, we talked a little bit about the routine and things like that. And I know you said that the defendant had, I guess, a tendency to exaggerate. And I think he was kind of within the same questioning about his routine and things like that. And you were asked questions about how often he would take Cooper to Chick-fil-A for daddy, son, things like that. You remember that line of questioning?
From the detective?
From the defense attorney on direct. You remember him asking you those questions?
Yes.
Okay. And you know the defendant said that he went 2 or 3 times a month. That's what he told the police. Did you know that?
I have not. I can barely remember what happened to me that day. I can't keep up with everything that he said that day.
Okay. Have you watched his interviews and things like that?
No.
Okay. You haven't watched any of his interactions or videos of him at any point from the discovery?
Just a very small portion.
And who showed you that?
I saw the one of me and him together.
Mm-hmm. You never saw the ones of him by himself and how he was acting, did you?
Just clips, nothing.
Okay. And who showed you those things?
I saw it during the trial.
Okay. And we'll talk about that. And let me just go ahead and ask you real quick. You've been watching some of this stuff during trial, correct?
Some of it, no.
Okay. And is that from home or here in the courtroom?
From home.
Okay. So you've been following what the testimony inside the courtroom has been to a degree, correct?
To a degree.
Okay.
I haven't been able to see everything.
Okay. And you're aware that, like most witnesses, they don't get to sit in here and hear what all the other witnesses say and things like that, right? Like the lead detective does, but but you have been watching.
Some of it.
Have you watched any of the testimony from regarding what he was sending to other people, the messages, these whisper messages and things like that?
A small portion of it.
Okay. Does that sound like the same person you were married to?
It sounds like somebody that's very lost.
Well, my question is, does that sound like the same person you were married to?
She's answered the question.
She did not answer.
Let's ask and answer.
You can answer it, ma'am, if you would, please. Does that sound like a different person than the person you were married to and you knew at home?
Sounds like a different part.
So
It was not a part that he shared with me, obviously.
Okay.
I did not know these things. I didn't know these things that he was doing. So it's obviously a part of himself that he was not sharing with me.
Back to the Chick-fil-A. You talked to the police as well back on June 18, 2014, right?
Right.
Okay, and you told them at the time that defendant would take Cooper about every 2 weeks to Chick-fil-A.
That was what I said that day.
Yes, okay. And your memory was better that day than it is now, correct?
As far as that was concerned, I honestly don't know. As far as that was concerned, I wasn't the one taking him to Chick-fil-A.
But that, as far as your memory would be today, your memory or your estimation of how often he would take Cooper to Chick-fil-A in the mornings was probably a better memory of that back then than today. You would agree with that?
I think that was a guess then, and it would be a guess now for me to say how often he took Cooper to Chick-fil-A.
But those were your words back then, correct?
It was. I was under a lot of stress, obviously.
All right. And there were times he would take Cooper to daycare after going to Chick-fil-A as well, correct? In addition to the breakfast, he would go through the drive-thru and get
He
Chick-fil-A.
would take Cooper before.
Today, he would go through Chick-fil-A before he went to Little Apron Academy.
I don't know if he would go with Cooper. I would assume he would take Cooper to daycare first. And if he wanted to get Cooper to breakfast on time, take him to daycare and then go to Chick-fil-A. Would it make sense to go to Chick-fil-A with him and Cooper if he wasn't planning on taking Cooper inside?
Okay. Were you aware that other people, that there's evidence that that did happen.
Well, I'm going to object to that.
Let me
This
ask.
is
Okay, I'll rephrase. Do you know Janie Meadows?
I do not.
Okay. Do you know of her now?
I do.
Did you know of her back then?
No, I do not.
Okay. And obviously you know Azura Hawkins, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, didn't the defendant text you about a time they asked him to stop by Chick-fil-A, and he got them Chick-fil-A with Cooper before he came to daycare?
I vaguely remember that.
Now that's in the, is that in the text messages?
I don't remember reading that. It must not have been.
Okay.
If it was there, it wasn't something that stuck out in my memory.
But you vaguely do remember that that had happened.
I remember that has happened before. I don't know if it happened often or if it just happened on one occasion.
And you talked about your routine as well. Like, I think you described it as, you know, you wouldn't decide it, I guess. You wouldn't like pregame decide who was going to take Cooper. But the defendant took him most often, right?
Yes.
Unless the defendant had something going on, either something big at work he had to be in for or something like that, then he would ask you to take a Cooper on those occasions.
Yeah, if I was going to work later that day than him, then I would take Cooper. If he had a meeting that day or something, then I might possibly would take him. But he was primary.
And so he had no problem if he had something going on work-related to ask you, hey, can you take Cooper? Okay. And so that morning, there was no reason or he had no work-related issues to where he said, hey, I need you to take Cooper this morning. I'm super stressed and I got a big project due this morning. He didn't say anything like that, right?
No, he never said that to me.
In fact, he hadn't said anything about being stressed at work or anything at that point, correct? Like that day, the day before, leading up to it?
That day, no.
And we'll talk about it in a minute. He was unhappy at his job, right?
He was not as fulfilled as he would like to be.
Would that be unhappy?
He enjoyed the work that he did. I think that he was
Judge,
just...
I'm going to object at this point to, I think she finished her answer. Now it's non-responsive. She's just talking.
Yes, ask your next question.
Thank you. And I think you talked about sometimes after church, on the drive home, Cooper would fall asleep and things like that.
Yes.
Okay. In church, I went to church on the Marietta Square, right?
Yes.
And that's not like right next door to your y'all's home, correct?
I'm not sure the exact distance, but no, it's not. It's,
About how long did it take to get there?
depending on traffic, 10 minutes.
Okay. And that would be after lunch?
It would depend on the service that we went to.
Mm-hmm.
It could possibly be before lunch or it could have been after lunch.
And as we talked about before, that's a lot longer than going from Chick-fil-A to Little Aprons or Treehouse, correct?
Correct.
And you remember telling the detectives back on June 18th that the defendant, when he would go out with his friends and things like that, it would usually be for dinner or something of that nature, right?
That if he went out with his
Yeah. Mhm.
friends,
Yeah,
dinner,
something like that.
he mentioned drinks one time, maybe.
Do you remember telling the detectives then that it was unusual for him to go to the movies right after work?
It was unusual for him to go to the movies right after work. He didn't go to the movies a lot.
All right. Now, just one thing you'd mentioned to the jury that the defendant was very absent-minded. I think you used that term, or the defense attorney used that term and you agreed with him, that the defendant was absent-minded.
I would say that at times he could be absent.
Okay. And the example you gave was him forgetting to cap or deposit a check. Is that right?
I think that was just an example.
Okay.
As
And
far
you-
as money is concerned.
And you never told the detectives back when you talked to them back in 2018, or excuse me, June 18th, 2014, that your husband was absent-minded in any way, did you?
I didn't say those words, no. I don't know, I don't know my exact words.
You watched the interviews, your own interviews, correct?
I've watched it, and I've read the transcript of it, but it's long, and a lot of it I don't remember.
How recently did you watch it?
I really don't know. I don't have a time frame for you.
I mean, like a couple of weeks, a couple of months?
It was more than a couple of months.
Okay. And who did you watch it with?
Maddox Gilbert.
Okay. The defendant's attorney?
Yes.
Okay. Did he point out specific things in there to pay attention to during the interview?
I don't recall that.
Is it possible he did?
It's possible.
And you can't sit here right now and say there's any point where you even insinuated the defendant was absent-minded in that interview, can you?
The only time that I would have insinuated it was when he asked me what I thought happened.
And that you said you thought Cooper fell asleep.
I said I thought Cooper fell asleep and Ross got distracted.
And you don't know what he was doing in that car that morning, do you?
No, I don't. They asked me what I thought, and I told them.
Now, you talked about the defendant. I think you said he's got a bigger than, I can't remember exactly how you described it, a very big personality?
Yes.
Okay.
Larger than mine.
Right. He was always talking to folks and things like that, trying to become friends with them and things of that nature, right?
I would agree.
Okay. And then he also tried to impress people, correct?
I would agree with that.
With like facts and things like that, and stories.
Yes.
Okay. You would agree, he was very concerned with perception.
I would agree with that.
He really did not want anybody to think ill of him. Would you agree with that?
I don't think most people want anyone to think ill of you.
Okay. But some people worry about it more than others, right?
That's
Well, I would
true.
object to what most people thought. I don't think that's relevant.
You can answer it.
Would you mind repeating it? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I know I started to answer, but
Okay. That understandable. You would agree that he worried more than most people about other people's perception of him. Would you agree with that?
I'm going to object. She wouldn't have any basis of knowledge for what other people thought.
He's had her testify about his demeanor and his personality all over the board, Judge.
Yes.
That's what I'm asking about his.
You can do it.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that he expressed that to me, that he was worried about what people thought about him. I can't say that he expressed that to me.
Move on to another topic here. Kind of in that vein, were you in a relationship with him when he worked for Tuscaloosa Police Department?
Yes, we were married, and he started the job at Tuscaloosa Police Department like a week to two after we were married.
And he only worked there maybe a little less than 3 years, correct?
We were married in 2006, and it was probably around 3 years.
So if he said it was 5, you wouldn't be telling the truth about that, right?
I'm trying to think of the timeline of when he went back to school full time. So we were married in 2006. He started in 2006, and I graduated in December 2007. He started going back to school in the summer of 2008. He went part time for about a year, and then he went full time and he quit his job. So I would say it would be around somewhere between 3.5 years, depending on when he officially quit and went to school full time.
Okay, just back a couple of questions on his personality. He said he's got a big personality. When, kind of within the home, would he make decisions and things like that? Was he kind of more running the show, or how did that happen as far as decision making?
No, we did it together. It was something, as far as big decisions, we talked about it.
And you said he was happy-go-lucky all the time, like always in a good mood, things like that?
That was the difference in our personalities. He was more just kind of go with the flow, and I was a little more structured.
And I believe you stated that when he was uncomfortable, he might overcompensate and things like that.
Yes.
You would agree that in May, going into June of 2018, he was down and depressed and sad about some things.
After going back and reviewing the text messages, yes.
Okay. And were you watching TV when we read that whisper post that he told some random anonymous person back at the end of the month, a couple weeks before Cooper's death, that he was at a breaking point, or his breaking point was pretty low?
I don't recall that, I'm sorry.
That was something you may not have known what was going on with him at that time, correct?
That I didn't know that he was...
He was near a
upset.
breaking point, or his breaking point was pretty low. You didn't know that about him at the time.
Well, I'm going to object to the form of the question. I believe the evidence is that that was something that was in a post, not that there's no evidence that he was actually at a breaking point, just something that he had talked. It's not the same thing.
He told a random person that he was at a breaking point. Did you know that he
I'm
was
going to
at...
object. That is not the evidence. That's a mischaracterization of the evidence.
What is it?
I say the whisper says his breaking point was pretty low right now. That's what he told another person.
He's rephrased it correctly.
You can ask.
And I did it several times before that. Thank you.
You can ask.
Thank you. So, did you know that his breaking point, did he ever tell you his breaking point was pretty low?
It was pretty low, meaning he was getting to a breaking point? Is that-
Yes. Did you know that? Did he ever tell you that in the couple of weeks before Cooper's death?
No.
Let's talk a little bit about the marital, kind of the relationship there. You talked about the fact that you had caught him doing things several times over the years, correct? First it was pornography.
Well, he came to me with that, so I didn't catch him with that.
Okay. And what sparked that for him to go to you? Talking with a buddy, I think, right?
I think he called the buddy about it. I think that he was feeling that he had a problem with something, and he wanted to talk to somebody.
Right. And this was nothing about infidelity or anything like that, correct?
No.
Okay. And then, you called him several times because then I guess, again, it was, 2010 that you saw a message from him asking for photographs from another woman.
Yes.
Okay. And even with that, obviously, y'all talked about it and you didn't leave him or anything like that, right?
No. I was very angry.
And I think that's the time you wanted him to actually leave, correct?
That's right.
And he refused to leave.
He didn't want to leave me.
Did you tell him you wanted him to leave you? Did you tell him you wanted to leave?
I remember from the bathroom where I shut myself up in that I asked him to please leave. I want you to leave. I want you to go. I didn't want to see him.
Right. What was his explanation for it? What did he tell you was going on with the messaging another person asking them for photographs?
I can't remember the exact explanation. It was. I think the conversation went down, a path of, I thought that that we had, first of all, I thought that it was just pornography. Now you're talking to another woman. Basically, this has to stop. And so it was kind of one of those things that I guess we discussed, that it started off as one thing and progressed to something else.
All right. And so you would agree that messaging an actual other person and asking for photographs, then that's a whole different ballgame than looking at pornography.
I've never done anything like that. I don't know how I would see it in my head. I could see how somebody would go down that path.
Did you see it as a difference back then? Like, he is escalating, going from looking at pornography to now messaging other women.
Well, yes, it is escalating. It's increasing in problem.
Right. And so this is involving real people now. And I believe you told your friend before that, you never believe, he would never commit adultery or anything. You remember telling that to people? Telling that to Angie Bond?
I didn't think that he would have an affair.
Yeah.
A physical affair.
Okay. But he did, as we found out. Correct?
As I found out, yes.
Okay. And that, did he tell you he was sorry or explain the relationship with this person back in 2010, like how he met her, anything like that?
I can't remember if we got into how he got in that situation, but he was very, very apologetic, very sorry, very upset about it. He knew he'd messed up. That's when we started seeing our pastor at the time for counseling.
Did he tell you who the person was?
He didn't know the person.
Okay.
As far as I understood it, it was just kind of a random thing.
Okay. Did he tell you how he met her, like on an application or the internet or anything like that?
It was some kind of internet.
But you don't
I don't.
remember exactly what it was, correct?
I don't.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. And then again, there were several other times, I think, that we'll talk about it in more detail in a little bit, that you caught him stepping out to a certain degree, either emotionally or sexually with other people, as far as online and things like that. But you stayed with him, correct?
It was just one other time.
Okay.
And then there was him coming to me with the pornography, me finding that message on his phone in 2010, and then the pornography kind of coming out again at the end of 2000. I can't remember the year.
Right.
But the last message that I saw on his phone was not sexual in any way, but it was obviously not from a male friend.
Right. And at that point in 2013, did you ask him who that person was?
I did.
Okay, and who was that person?
I don't know if he gave me a name. I can't remember. But he basically said that it was somebody that he had met online and that they had started talking and had become friends. I didn't see any of the conversations other than that one message.
So obviously we know now he was absolutely lying to you about all that, correct?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I would assume yes.
And at that point you forgave him again, correct?
We were in counseling at that time.
So
we were trying to work through these problems that we had. And so that came up, and we went immediately to the therapist and talked to him about it. Our goal was always to try to save our marriage if we could. And so that was the goal of our counselor. It was our goal as well. So I guess I'm sorry. I guess you can say, yes, I did forgive him. But at that, I didn't know that he was lying to me, obviously.
And did he make assurances to you that I'm not that type of person, it's nothing more than this? Did he give you those types of assurances as well during counseling and otherwise?
Of course he did, because he knew if he had cheated on me, I would have left him.
And I think you stated that you actually asked him, if you want to leave, you can leave, correct? If you want to divorce me, you can divorce me.
I asked him if he wanted a divorce, I would give it to him.
So you kind of put the ball in his court. You would agree with that?
Basically, if you don't want to be married anymore,
Mm-hmm.
I will let you out. We can get divorced, and you can go.
Right. And so that was back in, what was that, summer of 2013? August?
I don't know an exact time. It was after the last thing that I saw on his phone.
Okay. And you said that to him, and basically, would you say that you put the ball in his court, it was his decision to leave the marriage or not?
Right.
Okay. You at no time said, I'm leaving the marriage. You were staying in it, correct?
I didn't feel like at that point in time I had, not to say a reason to. You're talking about breaking points. My breaking point would have been a physical affair.
Okay.
If I had known he had been having affairs, I would have left him.
And your breaking point in this case was about when you finally decided to file for divorce. That was this year, correct?
Yes, the divorce was filed this year.
And it was long after you had learned about his extramarital affairs and things like that, correct?
It wasn't very long after. I can't tell you when I learned about his extramarital affairs.
Okay. You knew soon after this case, after your son died, within a couple of weeks, you knew that he had been messaging numerous women, at least 6 other women, on the day of Cooper's death, correct? And sexting with them and things like that. You did know
Are
that,
you
correct?
referring to what came out in the probable cause hearing?
Anytime around then, yes. You found out post probable cause hearing, you knew that, correct?
There were things said in the probable cause hearing, yes.
Okay, so the
There were
answer would
also
be
things
yes.
said-
I'm going to object.
Judge,
Let her
this
answer.
is-
I'm going to object because she's got the right to answer the question.
The problem is she's not answering the question.
I'm
Judge.
going,
The-
I'm going, I'm sorry.
Everybody stop, ask the question.
Okay, it's very simple. It's a yes or no.
Just ask the question.
After July 3rd, you learned that the defendant was carrying on the day of Cooper's death, at least 6 conversations sexually with other women. You learned that, correct?
That's a yes or no.
Yes.
Okay. And are you saying that you didn't learn until right before you filed for divorce that he was actually carrying on actual relationships with other women?
I had a lot to process
Oh, yes,
in a
ma'am.
very, very short period of time. I don't remember exactly when I learned what had happened.
Right.
It took me a while to process it. Did I file for divorce immediately after finding out about it? No, I didn't. If that's what you're asking for.
Yeah,
Asking me.
and not just right after, it was, you didn't file for divorce. Right after, if you found out in July, you were still visiting him and seeing him and things like that, well up until this year, correct?
I didn't know what to believe.
Okay. And you were talking, you were in contact with the defense from the day after Cooper's death, correct?
I think that's pretty accurate.
Okay. And you never spoke with the state or the police again after the day of Cooper's death, correct?
No, I did not.
And Judge, I'm about to go on to another topic. I think this may be a good breaking point if you were stopping at 4:30 today. Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, close your notepads, keep it up in mind. Don't discuss the matter with each other, leave your notepads in your journal. 8:41, you all have a very pleasant evening.
All right. Still going down.
Work until 8:30 in the morning. Everyone have a great evening.
You too, Judge.